So, but I guess I was getting to the broader point that you make in the book, and that is that these people will commit crimes to win elections.
Well, I mean, that's what happened to me. Jim, that's what happened to Jim Tobin, that's what happened to Chuck McGee. So there's a crime right there. Hillary Clinton's referred to it as proof of the vast right-wing conspiracy. So I guess I'm ground zero. I never thought of myself that way. But I mean, if you want proof, that's proof. That's one evidence.
But you give a lot of other instances of similar type of criminal activity or unethical activity, as you kind of call it too.
Well, look, I mean, here's the thing, and it's important, I think, maybe for your viewers to understand this. This is not about morality. Running campaigns is not about morality. You can choose to conduct yourself in a moral way, but government shouldn't be about morality. That's what the church is for, and maybe even some cults. I don't know. But government is not about morality. Running campaigns is not about morality. Guys like me get hired to win. The stakes are high. Not only there's a lot of money on the table, but there's a lot of power, there's a lot of control, there's a lot of issues here that should not be dismissed lightly. And so think of it in a way as a defense attorney who's hired to defend a client. Their job is to defend their client to the best of their ability. A win for them is, say, maybe an acquittal, or better yet, a dismissal of the charges. So, I don't know what your experience is with the law, but the law is a wall. On one side you have the wards, the cleavers and the Huxtables, and on the other side you have the felons and the convicts. And but it's not morality. We're not talking about morality. Now, my judge did say, where's your moral compass? But I couldn't understand that. It's like he was speaking another language, because it's not a moral question for me. It's a question of how do you win. Now, you have an obligation to stay within the law, to not step over the bright line of the law. That's where I erred. I did not do that. I stepped over it. Now, I didn't mean to, but I did, and so I accepted the consequences for that. But I think your question was other criminal or unethical, and by that I think you mean maybe, for instance, calling Democratic households or union households with Hispanic voice. Is that what you're getting at?
Right, or sending mailings that attribute something to somebody that's not actually doing the mailing.
Yeah, well, that's a whole different thing. Okay, so, and I don't know if I have any, I don't think there's any examples of that in the book, although I just did read a piece about mailings that went to ministers in Iowa.
I sent you that.
Oh, did you send me that? Yeah, I mean, that, and that gets to, I think one thing you're talking about is maybe the ballot security thing in 1981 in New Jersey.
Yeah.
There's one example
Yeah,
of
that
that.
was one.
And yes, that stuff is criminal. Now, in that case, I don't think anyone was charged criminally.
No, I'm just.
But it was a different era, you know.
I'm just wondering if, because the way, what I came away with in the book is that there's a mindset, at least amongst a certain segment of the RNC, that we win no matter what, by hook or crook, and once we win, we can kind of make the laws and decide, what happens.
Well, the one thing I want to also be clear in is I never worked on the Democratic side, so I can't speak to that.
Right.
Doesn't mean they're lily white over there. I mean, there's plenty of things that Democrats do as well.
Right.
I just can't speak to it because I don't have any firsthand experience. But yes, the idea is to win. That is the idea. That's what campaigns are about. You'll say, well, they're about dialogue and debate. No, they're not. They're about winning. That's what they're. That's the whole point.
I guess I'm just trying to get to whether that winning strategy of theirs goes past the point of criminal activity.
Right, and I can tell you from my own experience that I know of one instance where it did.
Okay.
And then I mean, all of this is just about my experience in politics, and who knows? Maybe I'm the anomaly. Maybe I am. I don't know.
You don't act like that in the book.
Well, no, because I mean, I know enough to know what the practices are.
Mm.
And again, you know, why do you take a poll? Well, you take a poll to figure out what buttons to push. And the idea there is, you know, that's why you have cell, you know, what they call cell samples. These the little pieces of information that tell you which demographic reacts to what. That tells you what a voter necessarily is predisposed to do if you tell them a certain thing. And that ultimately is the message in the book, which is, you know, next time you're looking at a political communication, ask yourself, why me? Why am I getting this piece of direct mail, or seeing this television spot, or this radio spot, or something in my email? Why me? They're sending this to me for a reason. Who do they think they are, and what are they how are they trying to get me to respond? And that ultimately is what I'm trying to do is, in the book, just kind of walk people through the language so they can become somewhat, you don't have to be fluent, but you just need to have an idea of how the language works. And then you can figure it out for yourself. And that's the charge in the book.
So do you see, in the book, I kind of got the impression that it was, everything flowed down from Karl Rove through the RNC to the political directors like you. Was that kind of...
Well, let me clarify that a little bit. I never worked at the RNC when Karl Rove was in charge.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure where you're getting that.
Well,
in the
you
book,
talked
but-
about seeing Karl Rove in a situation in which you were watching him, and it was...
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, I mean, what that was meant to do was, to be honest with you, I was very impressed by that display.
Yeah.
Because what you're talking about is, this is when I was trying to raise money to start my company, and I went down to visit with, oh, I'm sorry. I'd gone down to Austin, this is in 2000, and essentially this was to get the blessing of one of my former colleagues, who was the political director of the Bush campaign. His name is Tony Feather. And I'd been, you know, I was going down there to meet with him and get his blessing and hopefully get some business from the Bush campaign. Because although I didn't want to work for him, you know, I was a businessman, and that was where all the money was going to be, and I was going to at least take a shot at seeing if I could get some of that, which I never did, by the way. I was a little foolish to think that I might. But anyway, so I walked into this office, and you know, it's a hub of activity. There's lots of cubicles and people doing what they do. But in the middle, you know, in this office with all these glass windows around was Karl Rove, and you know, he was in there, and it was impressive. Lots of computer monitors, and I noticed that they were all Macs too. I noticed they weren't PCs. I mean, they weren't, you know, Microsoft. It was all Macs, and you know, he had a headset on, and he was doing his thing. He was doing what makes him. And look, I mean, some of your viewers and readers are going to probably hate this, but I mean, he's in the pantheon of the great American political managers, campaign managers. James Carville and Karl Rove and Lee Atwater and Roger Ailes. I mean, these guys are the best of the best. And so it was impressive. I mean, and the reason I put that in the book was it gave you a sense that this guy was in control.
Well, that's why I asked whether, because that was the impression I got from the book, that you know, he was in control. It went down to Haley Barbour. You know, Barbour kind of designated it out to people like you through other operatives.
Well, I wouldn't say that Karl Rove gives Haley Barbour marching orders. Haley's he's his own guy, and I have a lot of respect for Haley. And you'll notice in the book that hopefully that's conveyed.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, Haley's he's again, I don't know who your viewers are, but he's an all right guy. I mean, he was always treated me very fairly, and I took great efforts to make sure that he was never and should not ever be unfairly tagged with my crime. He had nothing to do with it. The only thing he had to do with it is he gave me a shot to start a company. That's it.
So the GOP Marketplace was your company, and that's now defunct? You're not,
Oh yeah.
You're not doing anything?
Not for years. Not for years.